Admiral Kethvar stood in the center of his command ship's bridge, watching the stars through the massive viewing screen. His 4 eyes moved back and forth as he studied the data flowing across dozens of smaller monitors. The Zephyrian collective that spent 30 years preparing for this moment, and everything had to be perfect. The bridge was quiet except for the soft humming of computers and the gentle clicking sounds his crew made when they were thinking hard. Kethvar's skin changed from deep blue to light purple, showing his excitement. Today they would test everything they had learned about the strange species called humans. "Admiral, we are 2 hours away from human space," announced his second-in-command, Officer Yenth. Her voice carried the musical quality that all Zephyrians had when they spoke their own language through their universal translators. Kethvar nodded and turned to face the science station. "Zim, show me the human behavioral analysis one more time." The elderly scientist's skin turned a respectful shade of gray as he activated the holographic display. Images of human conflicts filled the air above them. Wars, battles, and diplomatic meetings from hundreds of years of human history played out in fast motion. "As you can see, Admiral, humans always follow the same pattern when faced with threats," Dr. Zim explained. His voice was calm and confident. "First, they try to talk and make deals. When that fails, they use money and trade as weapons. Then they send small military forces to test their enemy. Finally, if all else fails, they commit to total war." The hologram showed example after example. Human diplomats sitting at tables, trying to make peace. Human leaders announcing trade restrictions against their enemies. Small fleets of human warships engaging in limited battles. And finally, massive human armadas destroying everything in their path. "Every single conflict follows this pattern," Dr. Zim continued. "From their ancient wars on their home planet to their recent disputes with the Regalian Trading Company. They are completely predictable." Kethvar studied the data with satisfaction. The collective xenosociologists had been working on this project since they first discovered humans 50 years ago. They had collected every piece of human communication they could find. Radio broadcasts, quantum transmissions, captured computer files, intercepted military reports. Everything painted the same picture of a species locked into rigid behavioral patterns. "What about their technology?" asked Officer Yenth. Dr. Zim waved one of his long, thin arms dismissively. "Standard for their development level. Good, but nothing special. Their weapons are effective but predictable. Their ships are fast, but not faster than ours. Their computers are clever, but we have better ones." The Admiral's skin brightened to a confident orange. "And their military response times? According to our analysis, humans need at least 2 weeks to organize a defensive response, and 1 month minimum to mount any serious counterattack," Dr. Zim replied. "Their government moves slowly. They argue among themselves. They waste time with committees and votes." Kethvar turned back to the viewing screen. Out there, just beyond the edge of human territory, lay the Kepler sector. 3 small mining worlds with enough quantum crystals to power the collective's expansion for the next century. The humans had claimed these worlds, but they were barely defended. A few orbital stations, some mining equipment, maybe 1,000 human workers total. The plan was simple and elegant. The collective would take the mining worlds by force. The humans would respond exactly as they always did. First would come the diplomatic protests and demands for negotiations. The collective would ignore them. Then would come trade sanctions, which meant nothing since the collective didn't depend on human trade. After that, the humans would send a small fleet to show force and try to scare the Zephyrians away. By the time the humans committed to real military action, the collective would have stripped the quantum crystal deposits and left. Clean, efficient, and completely safe. "Sir, incoming message from Fleet Command," announced the communications officer. "Put it through," Kethvar ordered. The image of High Commander Zethka appeared in the air. Her ancient face was marked with the ritual scars that showed her high rank in collective society. Admiral Kethvar, you are authorized to proceed with Operation Crystal Harvest. Remember, we want those resources, but we do not want a long war with the humans. Get in, take what we need, and get out before they can organize a real response. Understood, High Commander. Our projections show we will have at least 6 weeks before the humans pose any real threat. More than enough time to complete the mining operation. Excellent. The collective is counting on you, Admiral. Do not let our people down. The transmission ended, and Kethvar turned to address his bridge crew. Around him, 200 of the finest warships in the collective fleet hung in space like deadly flowers. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Their crews were experienced veterans who had served in a dozen successful military campaigns. All ships, prepare to enter human space, Kethvar announced over the fleet communication system. Remember, we are not here to start a war. We are here to complete a simple resource extraction operation. The humans will respond exactly as our scientists predict. Stay calm, follow the plan, and we will all be home with full honor in 2 months. A chorus of acknowledgments came back from the fleet captains. Kethvar could hear the excitement in their voices. This would be the collective's largest expansion into new territory in 50 years. Success here would open up dozens of new worlds for Zephyrian colonies. Navigator, set course for Kepler 7. That mining station will be our first target, Kethvar ordered. Course laid in, Admiral. Communications, prepare the standard conquest announcement. We want the humans to know exactly what is happening, so they can respond appropriately. Message ready, sir. Kethvar looked around his bridge one final time. Everything was perfect. His ships were ready, his crew was confident, and his enemy was completely predictable. In a few hours, they would have their first human mining station. Within a week, they would control all 3 worlds in the Kepler sector. All ships, jump to hyperspace. Operation Crystal Harvest begins now. The stars stretched into lines of light, and the Zephyrian fleet disappeared into the swirling energy of hyperspace, carrying Admiral Kethvar toward what he believed would be an easy victory against the predictable humans. The attack on mining station Kepler 7 went exactly as planned. Admiral Kethvar watched from his command ship as his assault forces surrounded the small orbital facility. The human workers inside had barely enough time to send out a distress call before Zephyrian boarding parties took control of the station. Within 6 hours, the mining operation was completely under collective control. Kethvar's engineers reported that the quantum crystal deposits were even richer than their scouts had estimated. Everything was proceeding perfectly. Admiral, we have successfully captured all human personnel, reported Captain Vilktar, who had led the boarding operation. 43 workers, 12 security guards, and 5 administrative staff. They offered no resistance once they realized we were not going to harm them. Kethvar nodded with satisfaction. The collective did not believe in unnecessary violence. Dead humans would only make their eventual diplomatic response more angry and unpredictable. Better to treat the prisoners well and return them safely when the operation was complete. How long before we can begin full-scale crystal extraction? Kethvar asked his chief engineer. The human equipment is actually quite good, sir. We can start mining operations immediately. At current rates, we should be able to extract 80% of the available crystals within 4 weeks. Perfect. Even better than their original projections. Kethvar allowed himself a moment of pride. The first phase of Operation Crystal Harvest was complete, and now they just had to wait for the humans to respond according to their predictable pattern. But as the hours passed, something strange began to happen. Or rather, nothing happened at all. Sir, we have been monitoring all human communication channels, reported his intelligence officer, Lieutenant Zofra. There has been no increase in diplomatic traffic, no emergency government meetings, No military alerts. The humans appear to be quiet. Kethvar frowned. His skin shifted to a puzzled shade of yellow. Perhaps their government moves even more slowly than we thought. Give them more time. 12 hours passed. Then 24. Then 48. The silence from human space was becoming uncomfortable. Dr. Zim stood at his science station, checking and rechecking his behavioral analysis models. His skin had turned a worried gray color. "Admiral, this does not match any of our predictions. By now, there should have been at least 17 diplomatic protests and at least 3 angry speeches by human politicians." "Maybe they are planning something bigger," suggested Officer Yenth. "Perhaps they are organizing a more serious response." But that theory also proved wrong. Kethvar's spy network throughout human space reported normal activity everywhere. Human merchant ships continued their regular trade routes. Human military patrols followed their standard schedules. Human civilian communications showed no sign of panic or anger about the attack on Kepler-7. It was as if the Zephyrian invasion had simply been ignored. "This is impossible," Dr. Zim muttered, his skin now turning an alarmed shade of purple. "Humans do not ignore threats to their territory. It goes against every pattern we have observed." On the 3rd day, something even more bizarre happened. A human merchant vessel dropped out of hyperspace just outside the Kepler system and requested permission to dock at mining station Kepler-9, which was still under human control. "Sir, should we intercept the merchant ship?" asked the weapons officer. Kethvar considered this. Attacking civilian vessels might provoke the military response they were expecting from the humans. Monitor its communications. The human ship docked normally at Kepler-9, loaded a cargo of processed crystals, and departed. During the entire operation, the crew made no mention of the Zephyrian fleet. They acted as if nothing unusual was happening in their star system. "Admiral, this is very disturbing," Dr. Zim reported during the daily briefing. "Our entire strategy depends on predictable human responses. If humans have changed their behavior patterns—" "They have not changed," Kethvar said firmly, though his skin betrayed his uncertainty by shifting through several different colors. "Humans are creatures of habit. They follow the same patterns they have used for centuries. We simply need to give them more time." But even as he said this, the Admiral was beginning to feel the first cold touch of doubt. What if their analysis had been wrong? What if humans were not as predictable as they had believed? On the 4th day, long-range sensors detected a massive increase in human military communications throughout their territory. Finally, Kethvar thought with relief, the humans were responding. "Are they organizing a fleet to retake Kepler-7? He asked his intelligence officer. Lieutenant Zofra studied her screens with confusion. "Sir, the communications are highly encrypted. We cannot decode them. But the strange thing is, most of the traffic appears to be going to systems that are nowhere near here. It is as if they are organizing military operations in dozens of different locations simultaneously." This made no sense at all. Why would humans be mobilizing military forces hundreds of light years away from the invaded system? "Perhaps it is a distraction," suggested Officer Yenth. "They want us to think they are not focusing on this system." But Kethvar was no longer so confident. His study of human military history had shown that humans were often clever, but they were not typically this subtle. Human strategy usually involved direct, overwhelming responses to threats. This strange, scattered military activity was completely unlike anything in their behavioral analysis. "Dr. Zim, review all our data on human military responses. Look for any patterns we might have missed." The elderly scientist worked for hours, his skin cycling through colors that showed deep concentration and growing worry. Finally, he looked up with an expression that made Kethvar's heart sink. "Admiral, I have found something disturbing. In the past 50 years, there have been several incidents where other species tried to predict human behavior based on historical patterns. In every case, The humans responded in completely unexpected ways. What do you mean? The Regalian Trading Company expected humans to respond to their trade war using standard economic tactics. Instead, the humans developed entirely new financial strategies that the Regalians had never seen before. The Terran pirates expected humans to defend their colony ships with conventional escort fleets. Instead, the humans turned their colony ships into weapons. Kethvar felt his skin turning pale blue with fear. Are you saying that humans deliberately change their behavior to confuse their enemies? I am saying that humans may be far less predictable than we believed. Every time someone thinks they understand human patterns, the humans do something completely different. The Admiral stared at the image of mining station Kepler-7 on his main screen. His perfectly planned operation was beginning to feel like a trap, though he could not understand how or why. "Sir, incoming message from Kepler-9, announced the communications officer. "It is from the human station commander. Put it through." A middle-aged human woman appeared on the screen. She was sitting calmly at her desk, sipping from a cup of some hot beverage. "This is Commander Sarah Martinez of Mining Station Kepler-9. I just wanted to let you know that we received your message about taking control of Kepler-7. We understand that you need quantum crystals for your civilization. That is perfectly reasonable." Kethvar stared at the human in shock. This was not any kind of response their behavioral models had predicted. "However," Commander Martinez continued in the same calm voice, "I should probably mention that you have about 18 hours to evacuate our territory before things get complicated for you. Consider this a friendly warning between civilized species." The transmission ended, leaving Kethvar and his bridge crew staring at a blank screen in complete confusion. 16 hours after Commander Martinez's strange message, Admiral Kethvar was still trying to understand what the human woman had meant by complicated. His bridge crew had spent the entire night analyzing every word of her transmission, looking for hidden threats or coded messages. They found nothing. This human had simply told them to leave, as calmly as someone might ask a neighbor to move their vehicle. "Admiral, we have a new contact dropping out of hyperspace," announced the sensor officer. "Single ship, approaching from human space." Kethvar straightened in his command chair. Finally, the human military response was beginning. "What type of vessel? Warship? Battle cruiser?" The sensor officer looked confused. "Sir, according to our scans, it appears to be a modified mining ship. Very old design, minimal armament." "A mining ship?" Kethvar's skin turned yellow with puzzlement. "Are you certain?" "Hull configuration matches human industrial vessels from at least 20 years ago. It has been modified with some kind of communication array, but otherwise it appears to be a standard civilian craft." This made no sense at all. The humans were sending a single obsolete mining ship against a fleet of 200 modern warships? Either this was a desperate act of defiance, or the humans had completely lost their minds. "Open a channel to all ships," Kethvar ordered. "Battle stations. Prepare to destroy the approaching vessel." Throughout the collective fleet, weapon systems powered up, and targeting computers began calculating firing solutions. 200 warships focused their attention on one small human ship. The mining vessel continued its slow approach, broadcasting on all frequencies. "Attention Zephyrian forces, you have been asked to evacuate human territory. You now have 8 hours to comply with this request. This is your final warning." Kethvar's bridge crew erupted in what could only be described as laughter, though the sound Zephyrians made when amused was more like musical chiming. A single ancient mining ship was giving orders to the most powerful military fleet in collective history. "Sir, shall I destroy the vessel?" asked the weapons officer, still chiming with amusement. "Target their engines first. I want to capture whoever is flying that ship. They must have valuable intelligence about human military plans," Kethvar ordered. The weapons officer activated his targeting system and aimed the ship's main energy cannon at the human vessel. Then he paused, his skin turning a confused shade of green. "Admiral, I cannot get a weapons lock on the target." "What do you mean?" "The targeting computer cannot find the ship. According to our sensors, there is nothing there." Kethvar moved to the weapons console and checked the readings himself. The visual screens clearly showed the human mining ship continuing its approach. But every sensor and computer system on his ship reported empty space. "All ships, report targeting status on the human vessel," he commanded over the fleet communication system. One by one, his ship captains reported the same impossible problem. They could see the human ship with their eyes, but their computers insisted nothing was there. "This is some kind of human stealth technology," Dr. Zim suggested. "They are using advanced electronic warfare systems to confuse our sensors." But even as he said this, the elderly scientist's skin showed deep purple confusion. No stealth system should be able to fool visual observation while perfectly hiding from electronic sensors. It was like the human ship existed in two different realities at the same time. "All ships, prepare to fire manually," Kethvar ordered. "Use visual targeting only." But before his gunners could adjust their weapons, the human ship simply vanished. Not into hyperspace, which would have left characteristic energy readings. It just disappeared, as if it had never existed at all. The bridge fell silent, except for the soft humming of computers and the nervous color changes rippling across his crew's skin. "Sir," the communications officer said quietly, "we are receiving another transmission. It appears to be coming from the same ship, but our sensors show nothing there." "Put it through." The voice that came over the speakers was calm and pleasant, with the slight accent that humans from the outer colonies often had. "Admiral Kethvar, this is Captain Rodriguez of the Human Defense Corps. I apologize for the dramatic demonstration, but we wanted to make sure we had your complete attention." Kethvar looked around his bridge wildly. How did this human know his name? How was he transmitting from a ship that did not exist? "You now have 4 hours to evacuate human territory," Captain Rodriguez continued. "We really would prefer to resolve this situation peacefully. However, if you choose to remain, we will be forced to implement defensive measures that you may find uncomfortable." The transmission ended, leaving Kethvar staring at empty space where the human ship had been. "Dr. Zim," he said slowly, "how advanced is human technology?" The scientist's skin had turned almost white with fear. "Admiral, based on what we just witnessed, I believe we may have seriously underestimated human capabilities." 3 hours passed. Kethvar spent the time reviewing everything the collective knew about human technology. Most of it came from intercepted communications and captured databases that were at least 10 years old. Had the humans developed new technologies that the collective knew nothing about? "Admiral, we are detecting some unusual readings from the quantum crystals in our storage bays," reported the chief engineer. "What kind of readings?" "The crystals are generating some kind of harmonic resonance. It started about an hour ago, and it is getting stronger." Kethvar felt a chill run through his body. "Are the crystals we mined from Kepler-7 causing this?" "Yes, sir. All of the quantum crystals are resonating together, as if they are responding to some external signal." The Admiral's worst fears were beginning to come true. What if the humans had somehow prepared for this exact situation? What if the quantum crystals themselves were part of some kind of trap? "Sir, we are receiving multiple transmissions from our fleet," announced the communications officer. "All ships are reporting the same harmonic resonance from their quantum crystal storage." Before Kethvar could respond, every computer screen on his bridge flickered and went dark for exactly 3 seconds. When they came back online, a new message was displayed on all of them. "Greetings from the Human Defense Corps. You now have 1 hour to evacuate human territory. Failure to comply will result in the activation of defensive protocols. Have a pleasant day." "How did they access our computer systems?" Kethvar demanded. Dr. Zim was frantically checking his analysis equipment. Admiral, I believe the quantum crystals are acting as some kind of transmission medium. The humans may have been using them to infiltrate our systems since the moment we began mining operations. The horrible truth was beginning to become clear. The humans had not ignored the Zephyrian invasion. They had been watching, learning, and preparing since the very first moment collective ships entered their territory. All ships, prepare for immediate evacuation, Kethvar ordered. We are leaving human space now. But before he could give the order to jump to hyperspace, his navigation officer reported another impossible problem. Admiral, our hyperspace engines will not engage. All ships are reporting the same malfunction. Kethvar stared at his navigation displays in horror. They were trapped in human space. Their technology was being compromised by quantum crystals they had stolen. And somewhere out there, invisible human ships were watching their every move. Sir, incoming transmission from Captain Rodriguez. Put it through, Kethvar said weakly. Admiral, we really did try to give you multiple opportunities to leave peacefully. Unfortunately, you have chosen to ignore our warnings. Defensive protocols will be implemented in 30 minutes. Please ensure that all crew members are secured in their emergency stations. The transmission ended, and Admiral Kethvar realized that his perfectly planned operation had somehow become a nightmare that he did not understand at all. The attack began exactly 30 minutes after Captain Rodriguez's final warning, but it was unlike any military assault Admiral Kethvar had ever seen or imagined. At 0347 ship time, every computer system aboard every Zephyrian vessel in the fleet simply stopped working the way it was supposed to work. The computers did not crash or shut down. Instead, they began operating according to completely different programming. Admiral, our main computer is requesting new orders, reported the confused navigation officer. But it is asking for orders from someone called Admiral Rodriguez of the Human Defense Corps. Kethvar stared at his command displays in horror. The screens were showing normal system information, but all the text had changed from Zephyrian script to human writing. His own ship's computer was calmly displaying a message that read, Vessel designation, ZCS Vengeance. New commanding officer, Admiral Elena Rodriguez, Human Defense Corps. Awaiting orders. This is impossible, Dr. Zim said, his skin turning white with shock. Computer viruses cannot rewrite poor system programming. It would take months of work by expert programmers. But the evidence was right in front of them. Throughout the collective fleet, 200 warships were politely informing their crews that they now belonged to the Human Defense Corps and were ready to receive new instructions from their human commanders. Sir, engineering reports that all weapon systems are non-responsive, announced the weapons officer. The computers acknowledge our commands, but they say they require authorization from Admiral Rodriguez before any weapons can be fired. Kethvar tried to activate his emergency communication system to contact Fleet Command, but the radio simply displayed a message reading, Unauthorized transmission blocked. Please contact your human supervisor for approval. How long have the humans been inside our computer systems? He asked Dr. Zim. The elderly scientist was running diagnostics on every piece of equipment he could access. Admiral, based on the scope of these changes, they would have needed complete access to our systems for days. But that is impossible. Our quantum encryption should have prevented any external access. Unless they found another way in, suggested Officer Yenth. Before anyone could respond, the ship's main computer announced in a pleasant synthetic voice, Attention crew of ZCS Vengeance. You are receiving a priority message from Admiral Rodriguez. The main viewing screen flickered and displayed the image of a middle-aged human woman in a crisp military uniform. She was sitting in what appeared to be the command center of a very advanced warship. Good morning, Admiral Kethvar, she said with a friendly smile. I am Admiral Elena Rodriguez of the Human Defense Corps. I believe you have been speaking with my colleague, Captain Rodriguez, who has been handling the diplomatic aspects of this situation. Kethvar found his voice. How are you doing this? How did you take control of our fleet? An excellent question, Admiral Rodriguez replied. The answer involves a little bit of advanced planning and a great deal of quantum crystal engineering. You see, we have been expecting this exact scenario for quite some time. She gestured to someone off-screen, and the display changed to show a detailed analysis of the Zephyrian fleet. Our intelligence services have been monitoring collective communications for 15 years. We knew you were studying our historical behavioral patterns. We also knew that eventually you would decide to test your theories by attacking one of our mining colonies. The display showed a timeline of collective intelligence gathering activities, including reports that Kethvar recognized from his own mission briefings. So we prepared, Admiral Rodriguez continued. The quantum crystals in the Kepler system have been molecularly engineered to serve as transmission and processing nodes. Every crystal you mined contained millions of microscopic computer processors, all connected through quantum entanglement to our defense networks. Dr. Zim made a strangled sound of disbelief. Quantum entanglement cannot be used for information transmission. It violates the basic laws of physics. Admiral Rodriguez smiled. Dr. Zim, I presume? We have been monitoring your research for several years. You are quite brilliant, but your understanding of quantum mechanics is about 50 years behind current human knowledge. Quantum entanglement can indeed be used for information transmission, if you know how to manipulate the quantum foam properly. The display changed again, showing a three-dimensional model of quantum crystal structure. The moment your ships began processing our crystals, millions of quantum processors began mapping your computer networks, learning your programming languages, and preparing customized infiltration programs. It took 4 days to completely understand your systems and plant the necessary control programs. Kethvar felt sick. You were not ignoring our invasion, you were studying us. Exactly. Every scan you performed, every communication you sent, every system diagnostic you ran was actually providing us with more information about your capabilities and intentions. By the time you realized we were not responding according to your predicted patterns, we already had complete control of your fleet. Officer Jens asked the question that was terrifying all of them. What are you going to do to us? Nothing harmful, Admiral Rodriguez assured them. We are not interested in destroying your ships or harming your crews. However, we do need to make certain adjustments to ensure that this situation does not happen again. The viewing screen changed to show the exterior of Kethvar's ship. But something was wrong with the hull. The smooth metal surface was becoming rough and foamy, like some kind of metallic foam. The quantum crystals you so eagerly mined are now converting your ship hulls into a material we call safety foam, Admiral Rodriguez explained cheerfully. It maintains structural integrity and life support, but it makes your ships completely unsuitable for military operations. Think of it as a very advanced form of disarmament. Throughout the bridge, alarm systems were activating as the ship's hull continued its transformation, but the alarms were politely displaying messages in human script. Hull conversion in progress. Estimated completion, 2 hours. Crew safety, guaranteed. Have a nice day. This is an act of war, Kethvar protested. Actually, Admiral, this is an act of defense, Rodriguez replied. You invaded our territory, seized our resources, and captured our citizens. Under interstellar law, we are fully justified in taking any measures necessary to protect ourselves. But you could have simply destroyed our fleet. We could have, Rodriguez agreed, but that would have been wasteful and cruel. This way your crews survive, your ships can be repaired, and you learn a valuable lesson about assuming that other species are predictable. Dr. Zim looked up from his instruments with a horrified expression. Admiral Rodriguez, How long have humans been capable of this level of technological manipulation? The human commander's smile became slightly sad. Dr. Zim, humans have been capable of this level of technology for over 30 years. But we have learned that displaying our full capabilities tends to make other species nervous. So we usually pretend to be less advanced than we actually are. Why? Because we have learned that it is better to be underestimated than to be feared. When other species think we are predictable and technologically inferior, they tend to leave us alone. But when they realize what we are actually capable of, they sometimes decide that humans are too dangerous to be allowed to exist. The viewing screen changed one final time, showing a peaceful image of human colonies throughout the galaxy. We prefer peace, Admiral Kethvar. We want to trade, explore, and learn from other species. But we also learned long ago that the best way to ensure peace is to be prepared for every possible type of war, while hoping we never have to fight any of them. Admiral Rodriguez stood up from her command chair. Your ships will be towed to the nearest neutral port, where collective diplomats can arrange for your return home. Your crews will be treated well, and your ships will be repaired to full operational status once the hull conversion is reversed. And our mission? Failed, obviously. But Admiral, I want you to take a message back to the collective leadership. Humans do not repeat themselves. Every time someone thinks they understand how we will respond to a threat, we find a completely different way to handle the situation. We suggest that in the future, you consider asking for what you need instead of simply taking it. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Kethvar alone with his thoughts, and the sound of his ship's hull slowly transforming into harmless foam around him. 3 hours later, Admiral Kethvar found himself sitting in a comfortable chair aboard the human mining vessel that had originally delivered Captain Rodriguez's warning. The ship that had seemed so obsolete and harmless now revealed itself to be one of the most advanced vessels he had ever seen. The interior looked nothing like the old mining ship his sensors had detected. Instead, he was surrounded by gleaming control panels, holographic displays, and technology that seemed decades ahead of anything the collective possessed. Even the chair he was sitting in was monitoring his vital signs and adjusting its temperature to keep him comfortable. Captain Rodriguez, the younger Captain Rodriguez who had delivered the warnings, not Admiral Rodriguez who had commanded the overall operation, offered him a cup of something hot and pleasant smelling. It is called coffee. Humans drink it when we need to think clearly or when we want to be social. I thought you might enjoy trying something from our culture. Kethvar accepted the cup gratefully. The liquid was bitter but energizing, and somehow the simple act of sharing a drink made the entire situation feel less terrifying. Captain, I must ask you something, Kethvar said. How long have humans been preparing for this exact scenario? Captain Rodriguez sat down across from him and smiled. Since the day we realized that other species were watching our historical conflicts and trying to predict our future behavior. Our intelligence services detected collective monitoring stations about 15 years ago. It was not difficult to figure out what you were planning. 15 years? Admiral, humans learned a long time ago that the best way to win a war is to prevent it from starting. So when we realized that the collective was studying our behavioral patterns, we decided to prepare for every possible way you might use that information against us. Kethvar looked around the ship's impressive command center. This vessel, your sensors showed it as an obsolete mining ship. It is an obsolete mining ship, Captain Rodriguez said with amusement. We just added a few modifications. Humans are very good at making old things work in new ways. That mining ship has been in service for 23 years, but its computer systems are connected to every human defense network in the galaxy. Through the viewing ports, Kethvar could see his own fleet being slowly towed toward the edge of human space by ships that appeared to be simple cargo haulers, but were clearly much more advanced than they seemed. Your crews are being treated well, Captain Rodriguez assured him. Human medical teams are monitoring everyone for health problems, and we have provided food that is compatible with Zephyrian biology. No one has been harmed. What will happen to us now? You will be escorted to the neutral space station at Sigma Draconis, where collective diplomatic representatives are already waiting to negotiate your return. Your ships will be fully repaired, though we will be removing all the quantum crystals you mined from our territory. Kethvar nodded. That was fair, he supposed. The collective had stolen the crystals after all. Captain, may I ask you a personal question? Of course. Are humans really as peaceful as Admiral Rodriguez suggested? Or was that simply propaganda designed to make us feel better about our defeat? Captain Rodriguez was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the stars. When he finally spoke, his voice was serious. Admiral, humans have fought more wars than any species in the known galaxy. We have perfected violence in ways that would terrify most civilizations. But we have also learned that war is expensive, wasteful, and ultimately self-destructive. He turned to look directly at Kethvar. Every human child learns about our history of warfare. We study our mistakes so we do not repeat them. And the biggest mistake any species can make is to assume that military force is the only way to get what they need. But you were prepared to destroy our entire fleet. Yes, we were. If you had threatened human civilians, or refused to listen to diplomatic solutions, we would have eliminated your fleet completely. Humans are very good at violence, when violence is necessary. But we prefer other options. Captain Rodriguez activated a holographic display showing star charts of the local region. The quantum crystals you wanted? The collective could have simply asked to purchase them. We would have been happy to negotiate a fair trade agreement. Those crystals are valuable to us, but they are not worth fighting a war over. Kethvar stared at the display. You would have sold them to us? Admiral, humans trade with dozens of alien species. We have profitable relationships with civilizations across half the galaxy. Trade makes everyone richer and safer. War makes everyone poorer and dead. The Zephyrian admiral felt a deep sense of shame washing over him. The collective had spent 30 years preparing for a military operation to steal resources that they probably could have simply purchased through normal diplomatic channels. Captain, what will you tell other species about this incident? That the collective attempted to invade human territory based on flawed assumptions about human behavior, and that humans defended themselves using non-lethal methods that neutralized the threat without causing unnecessary casualties. Captain Rodriguez smiled. But we will also make sure that everyone knows humans are not as predictable as they might appear. Admiral Rodriguez was correct when she said that humans do not repeat themselves. Every time someone thinks they understand our patterns, we find new ways to surprise them. Is that a threat? No, Admiral. It is a promise. Humans prefer peace, but we are prepared for any kind of war. The next species that decides to test us will discover that we have developed entirely new methods of defense that no one has seen before. The ship's communication system chimed softly, and Captain Rodriguez listened to a brief report from his crew. Admiral, we are approaching the neutral station. Collective diplomats are requesting permission to board and speak with you. Kethvar stood up, feeling older and wearier than he had when this operation began. Captain, may I give you a message to deliver to Admiral Rodriguez? Of course. Tell her that the collective will be updating our behavioral analysis of human species. We will not make the mistake of assuming predictability again. Captain Rodriguez nodded seriously. I will deliver that message, but Admiral, let me offer some advice from one military officer to another. Yes? Next time your people want something from human space, try talking to us first. You might be surprised by how reasonable we can be when approached with respect, instead of invasion fleets. As Admiral Kethvar prepared to transfer to the diplomatic vessel that would carry him home, he reflected on everything he had learned during this disastrous operation. The collective had spent 3 decades studying human history, but they had completely failed to understand human nature. Humans did not simply react to threats according to predictable patterns. They learned from every encounter, adapted to every situation, and prepared for possibilities that other species had never even considered. But perhaps most importantly, they preferred to find solutions that did not require anyone to die. As his transport ship carried him away from human space, Admiral Kethvar composed his final report to the collective leadership. It would be a difficult report to write, but it would contain one crucial recommendation. The next time the collective needed something from human space, they should try asking politely first. After all, the worst thing the humans could do was say no. And that had to be better than discovering